The waiting room doors just flew open. It's great to see you all. It's top of the hour. I am Rabbi Devorah Lynn. I am co-founder of Jewish Earth Alliance, and I'm in Berkeley, California now, and I go by she, her pronouns, and co-founded with Dr. Mirala Goldsmith. And we are the voice. And if this is your first time with us, raise your hand. I don't have the full gallery, but my techie people can see. Anybody first time at our meeting? Do you see anybody, guys? There we go. Lillian, good to see you. Where are you from, Lillian? Oh, everybody's muted. Okay, and Eileen and Barbara Schwartz.
Queens, New York.
There you go, Queens. Alicia Stern, Rob Myers, good to see you.
Thanks, we're outside of DC.
And William Parkus, so great.
Barbara from Springfield, New Jersey.
Welcome, welcome.
I'm in the car, so I'm gonna keep video off.
Okay, that's okay. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Oh, we have 3 pages. Let me just see. Anybody else new on the second, third page? I don't see. All right. Well, we are also delighted to see our familiar faces as well, our regulars. So welcome, everyone, to this evening's program. And if you would, to start off, we need you to put your state 2 letters before your name, if you know how, if you can do that on your name. You'll have a chance before we go into breakout rooms by state. So if you can do that now, great, but we'll have another chance to do that. And in the chat, if you would put your name and organization, and if you're a first timer, just put first, and just note that in the chat. So let me start by a few words about the week. I've been thinking I should reread the book Full Catastrophe Living by John Kabat-Zinn, which was written in 1990. Oh, those were the days. What a week we have had this week. I want to, before we start our gathering tonight, to first acknowledge how broken our hearts are at the catastrophic fires in California. Our prayers and support are with all those near and dear to people and pets and wildlife that have been decimated, and the thousands who have lost their homes, possessions, memories, and a healthy environment in which to breathe in the path of the fires. We are heartened by the ceasefire and hostage exchange in Gaza and Israel, and we pray for its continuance with a more permanent resolution. And we are aware that yesterday's executive orders from the new administration was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day for our work on climate legislation. And that is the very reason we are all gathered here tonight. We are not backing down. We are not slowing down. We are so glad to see you all here tonight in preparation for our lobby day next month. We always open our meeting with an inspiration and a blessing from a spiritual leader. And tonight we have Rabbah Amalia Haas from Cleveland, Ohio. She is an alumna of Oberlin College and Yeshiva University and was ordained by Yeshivat Maharat in 2020, the Seminary for Orthodox Women in Riverside, New York. I looked it up, there are only 43 of you. That is quite a small club at this time. Rabbah Amalia is an experiential educator, a writer, a program designer, a chaplain, and the founder of an organic honey company called Amalia's Bees. I can personally tell you of its exceptional honey quality and taste with some really interesting combinations of spices, and you can get it online for now and for the holidays. So we will put her website in the chat. Amalia, please share some Torah with us.
Well, it's such an incredible honor to be here, and I just have so much gratitude and respect and enthusiasm for the work of the Jewish Earth Alliance, for your leadership. So I'm humbled and honored to be with you this evening. There's, as Dvorlin was saying, there's so much to say about this week and these current weeks. I think that I wanted to highlight some thoughts about the fires, the climate, and actually the honeybees, particularly in the light of the way the Torah refers to them, and some parallels to the way the Jewish people are described. In our tradition, we are called Knesset Yisrael. That's a term meaning the congregation of Israel. And also a Dat Yisrael, also another word for congregation. And that term is only used for one other being in the Torah itself. And the terminology is a Dat Divorim, congregation of bees. Bees are not referred to in the individual, they're called a congregation. And the term Edah, and clearly they didn't have the same sort of scientific awareness and understanding that we do about exactly what was happening inside of a hive, but it indicates a kind of multi-layered community, a complex community where different parts, different aspects of the community carry different responsibilities, and there's hierarchy, and leadership is a multi-layered thing. And that's certainly something that we see within our communities, but it's also something that the Torah seems to recognize about the bees and their complexity. Actually, in California, in Malibu, one of the people on this meeting is Lisa Friedman, who's a dear friend and supporter of my work for decades. And she and I have a shared deep connection to Camp JCA Shalom, which is in Malibu. And some years ago, the camp was burned down along with some other camps and houses in the Woosley fire, which has certainly been resting on my heart since the fires started again. And the animals and the people, thank God, were evacuated. Some of them actually watching the fire come over the mountain as they were coming down the winding road. The bees were not evacuated. And one of the extraordinary things that came out of that fire and really uplifted the community was that although a few of the hives were incinerated and there was nothing left, there were actually hives that not only survived, but were still flourishing. And one of the adaptations that the bees have, and people often don't realize this, is that honey is a dual purpose substance. It's actually both a food for them, but it's also a form of insulation. It both protects them from cold. Here in Ohio, where I am, the bees need about 40 to 60 pounds of honey to stay warm and be fed during the winter. And like in Alaska, they need about 80 pounds. So it's insulation from cold, but it's also insulation from heat and from fire. And one of the things that's been really resting on my heart and that I particularly wanted to share with this community is the notion that cradle to grave building is something that the hive represents. That is to say, like, apart from the loss of the bees of the hives that were incinerated, there was nothing toxic that was left over from the hive. And if anything, it can fertilize what regrows. And, as we think about building communities that are sustainable, not only for the people in them, but also for the earth, having a longer term vision where what we put into the land is something that doesn't end up poisoning the environment for us and for all of the creatures that share it with us. I know that it's probably time to let you folks go into the activism organizing. It's the core of this. But I did just want to mention that I'm very passionate about Jewish education. I do travel as a scholar in residence. And if you're interested in bringing me in to teach, it would be a huge honor in whatever community. I'm also actually just generally in the job market right now. So I would, appreciate it if you hear of teaching opportunities and other relevant things in the Jewish ecological world, Jewish educational world, and organizing. I would be grateful to be kept in mind. So I want to wish all of you tremendous strength and only blessing, and also to really, the work is great, but also to be sure to be gentle with yourselves. It's a long path ahead, and it's got to be a sustainable one, spiritually and emotionally. So I want to thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much. That was so sweet. I didn't know any of those things you spoke about insulation and all that. And Kenya, you're right, so that we should build things that aren't toxic. It's amazing. It's amazing. Thank you so much, Amal, Rabah. And your website for the honey is Amalia's Bees. Is that right?
It's if you look up Amalia Haas, the website will come up. It's a little bit long.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. And you mail out at the holidays, definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime.
And I do a lot of teaching both in person and on Zoom.
Oh, great.
Perfect. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we have just a wonderful Kihila tonight. We have a wonderful congregation of activists. We're so excited about your participation for our next lobby day. And next we have Noah Schurz. Noah is a high school senior from Denver, Colorado, who is an activist on the policy working group of the Jewish Youth Climate Movement National Leadership Board, which is a division of Adama, the largest Jewish environmental group in America, whom we know very well and have as an ally. Noah is the co-founder and co-leader of the Denver chapter of the Youth Climate Movement, the Jewish Youth Climate Movement. And I want to welcome him. Thank him so much for coming tonight. Please give us your perspective on your climate advocacy, Noah.
Thank you, Deborah. As has been said, I am a part of the Jewish Youth Climate Movement National Board on the policy team. Best working group, as I will say to everyone from JEA who is here, who needs to hear that regularly. So in Denver, of course, as a lot of us on JYCM are in a bunch of different groups, whether it's related to sustainability or other activism related endeavors in our local areas. And so I do get a great sense of connection from that, but seeing all 120 of you here on Zoom, it's very exciting to me that there are a lot more of me as adults who are passionate about climate, who are ready to hit the ground running with this new administration and get Lobby Day running. And on the policy group, I understand how important that is to work on policy, to push your legislators to support bills that are good for the climate, that support more things that are, whether it's the Farm Bill or working with JEA on action alerts and making sure that those get completed. And I'm a part of this movement because I get to connect with Jewish peers. I love helping young Jews understand that climate education is important and to continue to practice tikkun olam, to repair the world, to keep pushing forward even in times of despair. And so here today, being able to work on that antidote to despair, which is action, to push, to keep going, to make the best out of what is a grim situation, and to be together, to lobby, to push, and to kind of find solace within each other, to continue work in the climate movement, which is going to be very necessary for the next 4 years. So thank you for having me, and thank you all for being here to get this work done.
Terrific, Noah. Thank you so much for coming. It's great to have a connection, chidush, between our communities, our advocacy groups, and our generations. So thank you so much for that insight into that. And yes, it's very exciting, all the people that have showed up tonight to form a congregation of advocates and activists. So now we have a good amount of time. Our lobby coordinators and steering committee members, Dr. Phyllis Blumberg and Rabbi Melanie Aaron, are going to review for us the preparation materials for our Tu Bishvat Lobby Day coming up February 13th. That's what you all are here for. And I want to welcome the two of them to lay out our program for February.
Thank you, Devorah. Thank you all for being here. This is a great group of people, and we have a lot of states represented. So if we could get the slides up, that would be wonderful. Amy? Great. Okay, if you haven't already, if you can rename yourself, because we're going to be breaking into groups, so it'll help us. So we want to make sure that everybody's group is represented, and you are important. It's vital that we stand up and we say this is important to us. So we are regular people, and that's why it's really important for all of us are here. So next slide, please. Just a little bit of an overview. We have 122 people here tonight, but we have over 200 people registered already. We're aiming to have 300 people, and I suspect we will get there. We have over 25 states represented, so we're trying to make meetings with about 50 senators. We have 40 co-sponsoring organizations, and all of this adds up to a very large movement, which is really, really good. So the co-sponsoring organizations I would like to really thank, because they really make it. So the co-sponsoring organizations are on the next slide, please. Oh, I wanted to say something about the scheduling of meetings. Sorry about that. We're trying to schedule the meetings with usually a staff person from the offices, although all of us usually plan in advance and try to get our meetings established maybe a week or two in advance. That's not how the senators work. They work at the last minute, and it makes sense that they work that way because something could come up that the staff meetings have to come together, or there could be some rush thing in the Senate. So they usually let us know a couple of days in advance, and that's, I know, a little bit trying for all of us, but we just have to go with the flow and recognize that that's the way they operate. We are getting some meetings set up in advance, and we will let people know when they're set up. So this is our incredible list of co-sponsors. If you look down this list, you will see synagogues, you will see national organizations, you will see Jews of every persuasion, you will see people who are not affiliated with synagogues, you will see all kinds of things. And I just think that's the strength of our organization. So we've got renewal, and we've got reform Judaism, we've got humanistic Judaism, and that is who we are. That's who American Jews are. And that is so wonderful that we come together from our various organizations and our co-sponsors to lobby together. So I want to give a big thank you and a big shout out to all these organizations. No doubt many of you are coming from these organizations, and that's how you got recruited. And the list keeps growing. If you signed up recently and it's not on the list, we're sorry, but we couldn't possibly check the slides like right beforehand. So if I missed your congregation, please notify me. or any of the Jewish Earth Alliance, and we'll make sure to thank you again publicly. So next slide, please. Now we're going to get down to where we need more people. And we need more people in various states because we're trying very hard to reach out to senators who are on key committees, like Alaska and Maine. We're trying to reach out to senators who may not have a lot of Jewish population, like Montana and Alabama, Tennessee and Kentucky, because those are people that we want to talk to their senators. We want them to know that we're Jews that care about this, and we want them to care also. And what you don't see on the list are the states where most of the Jews live, because we've got great contingents from all of them. And so that is something that we're very, very happy to have so many people. Next slide, please. So if you know people in any of these states, let us try to organize them, try to get them to come. We will help them out, even if they miss tonight's meeting. Thanks. Okay. We are a Jewish values-based organization. I think Jews probably act on the basis of values. So a couple of Jewish values that I take very seriously, but I think that most of us do. You can have some others, l'dor b'dor, from generation to generation. Yishuv Olam, which is preserving a habitable world. We are stewards of the earth and all of its inhabitants. And then the one that's most familiar to even non-Jews is Tikkun Olam, making the world a better place. So those values lead us to act. And what are we trying to support? We want to support health and climate policies for clean air, clean water. We want to support healthy communities and ecosystems. We want to cut down on dangerous pollution. We want to accelerate the country's transition to clean energy. We have supported in the past sustainable farming practices, and we are supporting environmental justice. So those are the main causes that we tend to support. Next slide, please. So as I said, we have supported sustainable farming, minority farmers, restoring wildlife. These are what we've done in the past. We had a very successful lobby day in August 2024, where we advocated with many members of Congress to legislate to overcome the Supreme Court Chevron decision, which had just come out. We were very happy to hear that the senators were actually aware of this and were talking about this, and we had some great discussions. CRAs were big in the summer, and they're going to be big again this year. So we avoiding the pushback on positive environmental action through congressional review actions. And where we supported the climate solutions in the Farm Bill and support for recovering America's wildlife. That's what we've done just recently, but this year, next slide, please. This year, we're a little different. First of all, it's a new administration, which means all those bills that didn't make it through last year have to be reintroduced all over again. And we have a new Congress, we have new senators, and the Congress is not functional yet because there's a lot of new people, because they just haven't settled down yet. And I think the country is somewhat dysfunctional also. Unlikely that we're going to get a good climate legislation introduced between now and the middle of February. So our message this year is we are regular Americans. We want to build a relationship with you. We want to have a dialogue with you. And that's a very, very important message that we want you to know that we care and that you can call on us about things. We can talk to you about regular issues. So climate change is a concern of everyday Americans. Majority of Americans actually do believe that climate change is real. They believe that we should be concentrating on it, even if they're not doing something right now themselves. So as we always say, you know, the time is now. We need to take action. We need to take action. The window is very short for us to be taking action. And with what happened yesterday, I think the window got shut even more. But why are we doing this? Because of, like we say, door by door, we care about the future for our children, our grandchildren, and our grandchildren's children's children. Our stories are important. And so we do want to tell an important story. We want somebody from your delegation to tell a memorable story that people that senators can use when they're talking about climate change. So be thinking about your own personal story. Next slide, please. Okay. So coming up with specific lobby topics in this challenging environment has been tough. First of all, we have a new president who was just inaugurated yesterday. So it's not that, so we just are starting from scratch. So our goal is to support ways to preserve our habitable world, preserve the environmental regulations and guardrails which were put in place in the past 4 years. And before that, climate change has been going around, climate organization, to support the earth and its inhabitants, laws have been around for quite a while. And we want to make polluters pay for damages. So if a specific issue comes up, like a specific bill that's introduced by senators comes up on these issues between now and the beginning of February, we will definitely let you know, and we will include that. But at this point, we're not going to be saying we're supporting the farm bill or a specific measure like we have in the past. So next slide, please. So what we agreed upon from the Jewish Earth Alliance just today is the lobby topics that we want to be talking about are to protect the IRA funding. IRA was the largest and, to me, the game-changing aspect of our ability to fight climate change. So we want to make sure that although a lot of the funding has already been put in place, contracts have not yet been signed, and we want to make sure that those contracts get funded. We also want to protect the EPA budget, and we want to make polluters pay. This year, we will be providing you with Republican and Democrat specific talking points. In the past, we provided you with talking points in terms of how the script goes and how the meeting goes, but we're really working on very different language for Republicans and Democrats. So about just a little bit more on these 3 topics. To protect IRA funding, we would like you to find out how much money did your state get from IRA, what industries were affected, how many jobs, and that's the kind of stories that you want to tell your senators, Republican and Democrat, incumbent and brand new, because that shows that this is really helping you out. Why do we want to protect the EPA budget? Because if the EPA budget is slashed, so it's not workable, then the EPA cannot do its work to achieve its mission. And its mission is to protect human health and the environment. So that's human health is certainly something that everybody agrees with. And most people agree with protecting the environment, even if they don't call it the same way we do. And finally, we want to make sure that polluters pay. The choice is simple: to make polluters pay their fair share to build resilient communities. Or if we don't, then we're going to be bankrupt because our entire fossil fuel industries are collecting bonuses, but who's going to pay? The individual peoples are going to pay. And certainly the fires burning in the Los Angeles area has really brought to mind how much damage is happening. And we know that some of the reasons why this happened is because of fossil fuel industries and because of regulations that allow them to help to do this. So we want to get through this idea that polluters need to pay, and we already have a couple of state bills, and we want to make it a national effort. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're asking you as a team to find out about your senators. Go to their website and read what do they say about the climate. See if they even mention it. See what they say. Do they talk about it in terms of creation care? Do they talk about it in terms of future generations? Do they talk about it in terms, and also what are their first things that they talk about? If they're finance people, then you want to make sure you talk about money type of issues like jobs and money that you brought to the economy. If they're people that are they're farmers, then talk about the effects on farming. The League of Conservation Voters has a scorecard every single year of everybody who's elected at any level, about how much they voted for environmental issues. So you may have a brand new senator, but he may have come up from the state, and therefore he would still have a scorecard. Find out what the scorecard is. So I can tell you that I'm from Pennsylvania. Senator Fetterman's scorecard is 86%. That's good, but it's not what it's perfect. So we want to talk to him about, we would love to see a much higher scorecard. You can find out how many IRA investments came to your state, as I said, how much money, how many jobs, what industries, where they're located. And then we'll also be sending you information about the past experience that we had with the office. So we spoke about such and such in the summer. This is who we spoke to. These are the people that were there, the questions they had. So you're going to come in very, very well prepared, and you're going to have an excellent meeting because we're not walking in blind, and we're going to know how to really talk to the senator and give them information. Next slide, please. Okay, so how does the meeting flow? I consider it like a dance. It's a choreography that we have. So first, the lead will will introduce themselves and thank the senator or the aide for meeting, and then we'll have introductions. We do not want to spend a lot of time on introductions because these meetings are 30 minutes long. So people are going to put one sentence in the chat about who they are, their affiliation, and why they're there. And then we're going to have a prayer or a Jewish values or a reflection. And we give you a couple of options. If you want to write your own prayer or reflection, that's fine. And then new this year, we're asking only one person to give a personal story. So we're going to ask you in advance to write out your story. And not everybody may have a story, but somebody I'm sure is going to be affected. Somebody is going to say, I had a flood in my house and we lost everything. Or my mother did such and such. And these stories are what people need to hear. People process stories much better than they do facts. So we're here to tell stories, not to give facts. Then we're going to raise our concerns, and then we're going to ask the senator's office to support specific legislation or the 3 talking points. And then most important, we want to let the senator's staff talk to us. We want to know, where do they stand? How can we help out? We want to have a dialogue with them. So we want to make sure that we allow a lot of time for the senator's office to talk to us. And then we're going to close with a thank you, a promise to be in touch about certain issues, maybe follow up, maybe give them more information. Next slide, please. So roles, and this is all going to be gone over in our state meetings. There's about 10 roles that you can do during the meeting. We want a note taker to make sure that we get good notes. So because we will be following up by writing thank you notes, a timekeeper to keep us on time and honest about that. Somebody to write the thank you, not to write the thank you, but to introduce a thank you to the senator, like, we thank you for doing such and such, and you can find something that works sense. Take a screenshot, because as you can see in these slides, we use these screenshots for our publicity. And then somebody else is going to give the prayer or the values. So you can see that you don't have to say very much, and not everybody has to talk. So we have about 8-10 things. Not all of them are talking points, like the note keeper or the timekeeper is not a talking role. So we have a role for everybody, and we'll be going over that more in the meetings. The state leads have already had a meeting, so they're pretty well prepared, and now you're going to be prepared. And next slide. So we talked about come prepared, knowing your part, being familiar with the senator and how the senator feels about environmental issues, knowing who we're speaking to if we've spoken to them before. Want to be polite and respectful, even if they say to you, I don't believe in climate, where they can tell you pretty honest things. Be polite and respectful. We obviously want to be prompt. These meetings are 30 minutes and they end on time. So we want to begin whenever they get there. We want to be grateful to them for meeting with us. Most important, we want to stay focused. We want to stay focused on our commitment to help God's creation, focused on our topics. We do not want anybody to raise something else in the middle of a meeting. We don't want you to say, oh, and what's your stand on Israel? I mean, that's totally irrelevant to what we're talking about. Pithy. We don't have a lot of time, and as we said, we want to have dialogue with them, and we want to have their ability to ask us questions, to tell us what the office is doing, and maybe they've got a pet project that they would like us to know about. So we want to be very brief, and then we want to listen, and we want to learn from them. And how can we help them? What are you most interested in? So one of the principles about good lobbying is that we let them have 50% of the time, if at all possible, to talk. So it means we really have to be quick. So that's the flow of the lobby day, how you're going to be prepared. And then next slide. We want to have a positive message to our senators about the things that we were talking about. And you can have a positive message by talking about jobs and American manufacturing, energy security, and we want to talk about health and safety issues. Those are messages that we are happy to say this is all part of the legislation for environment. We want to protect the budgets so that they can do their job. And it's also important to know that this is not a new topic. The very first environmental laws were established in 1948, which is also the same year that Israel was created. So what you think about that, you know, it's a long time that we've been working on environmental issues, and we've been consistently building up better and better ones. So next slide, please. We're going to break up into small groups fairly soon, state groups. The lead will be running the meeting. And what we want you to do is introduce yourself and start talking about the roles that you would like to be doing before the meeting, speaking roles. If you don't want to have a speaking role, that's fine. And then follow up after the meeting. And then people volunteer to do the research. What do you know about the senators' climate positions? And then set up at least one more meeting as we get closer to the date, because not everybody's here from each state, and answer questions. So we are almost done with my presentation. Next slide, please. And I want to take just one or two questions because I want to make sure we have time in the slot. So if you've got, in the state meetings, if you've got a burning question that you really don't understand, if you could, there's been questions in the chat, and I know people have been answering those. If you could unmute yourself, and this should be a general question, not a specific question.
Simon from Michigan. Can you hear me?
Yep, thank you.
Question is, what kind of follow-up, or is there supposed to be some kind of standard follow-up after these?
Well, first of all, you want to write a thank you. That's an excellent question because it really does relate to everyone. You want to write a thank you note for meeting with us. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that you might want to give them more information. You might give them some more resources. You might give them a table or a chart that you talked about in terms of the number of jobs that came to your community. So whatever information you want to share with them, we put that in a thank you note.
And I'm just going to add that we ask each state to report on their meeting so that if there is some action that needs to be taken afterwards, whether, like Phyllis said, sending them something, or sometimes we've asked them to do something and then we want to check up in a month or two whether they have had the opportunity to do that. Your state lead will include that in the report, and we gather all those reports and give it attention. Thank you.
So Stu?
Yeah, so we're mentioning 3 asks. Normally with asks, you have an ask, and then you wait for the answer. You have another ask, wait for an answer. And I think in this case, because the asks are so general, is it more likely that we want to group all 3 asks together?
I think that's a reasonable thing. And also depending on the senator. I mean, if you know that the senator is already interested in this, or the senator is knowledgeable, then grouping them together would be appropriate. Great questions. Any more? One more question?
Please.
Rachel?
Thank you. I would really appreciate being sent the slides and the explanations that we were given today. I'm a slow learner, and they were wonderful. And I would be very sad if I couldn't look at them from time to time on the way to developing in a team. You know what
Right.
we're doing. Very rich. Is there some way?
Sure. We are going to send them out tomorrow or as soon as possible. This is also being recorded. And therefore we will have the recording available also.
Wonderful.
And we will also have the talking points available well beforehand. Within the next week or so, we will have the talking points available for everybody. So we do make it easy. We give you lots and lots of resources. So especially for first timers, it's much easier than you think it is because we give you so much. So last slide, and then we're going to have a final blessing, and we'll break into groups, and we'll talk to you people. If you don't know how to get into a group, we'll help you through that. So our current inhabitants and our future generations, thank you, because you're doing important work. We need all of us now, and we're calling on to make a better world is a mitzvah that only we can do. So I'm going to call on Rabbi Devorah to give us an inspiration before we get magically transported into our small groups.
There you go. Yes, someone, was it Jennifer Laszlo asked, can we go to other meetings if we once lived there, or we have a second house, or we have relatives? And the answer is a rousing yes. Yes, please, please do that, because numbers do count in those meetings. So thank you very much, Phyllis, and the whole committee on lobbying, our lobby days. And I want to thank our speakers today, Noah Schurz and Amalia Haas, and she put her contact information for her honey and her website just above in the chat. So I want to thank all the returning lobbyists that we had, activists that we have here tonight and going into lobby day, and the leads who have returned. And you know why they return? Because we prepare you so well, and you can talk or not talk, but it's important to be counted. And the whole enterprise is so fulfilling. That's what everybody says afterwards, is that they felt like this kind of action really felt fulfilling and important, and it fights off the despair that you may sometimes feel. So that was really crystal clear. Phyllis, thank you so much. We're not finished this evening. The important part is coming, the state meetings. I'm going to step out of the way, but don't go anywhere. As my mother would say, go to your room. And so you will find your state room and press on the button and meet with your lobby lead and organize for lobby day. Remember, numbers count. Remember, showing up is 90%. So hazak, hazak, v'nit hazek, find your strength with others and be strengthened. And we will see, go to your staterooms now, and we will see you again next month at Lobby